episode 266 of the CRICKETher Weekly. As you can see in the background, we are at the Utility Bowl for the second round of Tier 1 fixtures in the new Women's County structure. Hampshire playing Surrey today, and by the time you watch this you may know the result of that game, so you'll be a bit ahead of us. We are going to talk about the start of Tier 1 getting underway a few days ago, later in the podcast. I wanted to start though, Sid, by a shout out to a very special, apparently regular viewer, who informed me this week that they are a regular viewer of the podcast, and that is Barts, Sarah Bartlett, who's obviously a distinguished umpire in women's domestic cricket. So hi Barts, hope you enjoy this episode, as you sometimes enjoy the podcast. So you informed me, although sometimes you end up screaming at us and telling us why we're wrong. Now also Barts tells me that we have on the odd occasion recently had another very special viewer who's going to get a mention quite frequently, both in this episode and in numerous future episodes, because apparently Bart's actually played a couple of episodes of the CRICKETher Weekly to none other than Charlotte Edwards recently. And I must say that when I heard which episode that she'd listened to, I was rather embarrassed, because it was the one in which I said that there was going to have to be an 8-week gap between that episode and the New England coach being appointed. So apparently that was very amusing for Lottie and Barts. Anyway, shout out to both of you. Actually, Lottie's probably somewhere in the background here because we know that she's coming to this game. So yeah, just wanted to start off with that, Sid. Now, on to the news from this week. It's been a big week in cricket terms because it's been the release this week of Wisden. So Wisden 2025 out now in all good bookshops. It sounds like I'm advertising it. I suppose I am sort of advertising it, because between us we think we've got 7 articles in this year's Wisden, so we're not doing too badly. Anyway, it's a brilliant read as ever, and we were lucky to both get to go to the Wisden dinner this week in the long room at Lord's. Let's talk about the 2 awards this year that went to women's cricketers, Sid, because obviously there's the leading woman cricketer in the world awards that is awarded every year, but also there was a woman as part of the Wisden 5.
Shall we start with talking about Sophie Ecclestone?
Yeah.
So Sophie Ecclestone received her leather-bound Wisden as part of the Wisden 5. So just to remind everyone, there's 5 Cricketers of the Year named every year, and it's one of those awards that you can only ever win once. So once you've won it, you can't win it again, and it is for your impact in an English summer. So the award to Sophie Ecclestone was for the work that she did last summer. Obviously, she remains the world's leading bowler, and that piece was actually written by you, Raf. And when you interviewed Sophie, because you interviewed her prior to writing the piece, you asked her what her key memories were of last summer, didn't you? And what did she say?
I did, and she said, "Oh, it was great going toe to toe with Australia." So she'd. In her mind, she'd just gone back a little bit further than we actually needed to go, and I had to remind her of the fact that the reason that she'd been named as one of the Wisden 5 was her role as the architect of England's whitewash of both Pakistan and New Zealand in the most recent summer, because she was obviously thinking back a summer ago. Anyway, so congratulations to Sophie Ecclestone. It's an interesting one because obviously the stuff has happened subsequently over the winter now with the Ashes, and I guess that Ecclestone was very much kind of at the forefront of some of the criticism around that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big question is, does this mean we were unfair with some of our criticism of Sophie Ecclestone, Raf? Were we?
I mean, it remains the case that she's a brilliant bowler, and nothing that we said ever detracted from that. And I think that she's been given this award quite rightly because she was one of the standout figures in the summer. So it doesn't do anything to detract from that. What happened in the Ashes doesn't do anything to detract from that. I think that what happened was that she put herself at the forefront of criticism because of the very public thing that she did by denying that interview to Alex Hartley. But it's that in a way, that was just a kind of thing that the media were then able to latch onto that was symptomatic of the kind of broader cultural issues within the team and within the dressing room. And it was ultimately Heather Knight and John Lewis who oversaw that culture. So they are just as responsible as Sophie Ecclestone, who was just the kind of most public manifestation of that, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that, you know, I hope that while I was critical, for instance, of her slip fielding, which I was definitely very critical of, and to be fair, which Heather Knight eventually agreed with, because she, during the test, pulled her away from fielding a slip, I still think that I continue to, you know, acknowledge that she remained the most effective bowler in the world. So, you know, I think that definitely this award was deserved, and there's another way in which it was deserved as well, Ralph, because you know, no English woman has won. Been part of this Wisden 5 for several years now, and you know, it's like it does feel a little bit that, like, you know, what does a woman need to do compared to what a man needs to do? What a man needs to do is be part of the Wisden 5 is to maybe be just breaking into the England side and have a few caps. And if we look at the men, the 4 men that got the other awards, you know, we're seeing, you know, a handful of caps and people that are either one person that's been, you know, a domestic stalwart for many years, or other people that are just kind of breaking into England. To win the award as a woman, you have to be the best bowler in the world for 3 years, and you know, you have to really make an impact, you know, like an absolutely outstanding impact at international level. So I do feel that there continues to be a huge, you know, discrepancy. Whereas in the men's game, you can almost win the award for your domestic performances, although all the award winners this year have played international cricket, but not the amount of it, you know, and at the level of excellence that Sophie Ecclestone has maintained for such a long time.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and I think partly Ecclestone has won this award via a kind of cumulative effect, right? In that she's been there or thereabouts for the Wisden 5 for probably like 2 or 3 years at least, and now Lawrence Booth, the editor who kind of makes these decisions, has sort of gone, okay, well, she did have another good summer last year, so let's give it to her now. It's a little bit unfortunate that it's come in the wake of that quite difficult winter, but as we said, that it shouldn't detract from it. But yeah, it's the cumulative effect, and I guess that, you know, we're not going to achieve equality, and we've said this before on the podcast, until a woman can become one of the Wisden 5 purely through domestic performances, right? There's been a couple of sort of high profile women doing things in domestic cricket who haven't played international cricket, who really, if they'd been men, would have been likely to be one of the Wisden 5, right, Sid?
Yeah, I mean, we look at like Georgia Adams' performances, you know, out here for the Southern Vipers in the first couple of seasons, and I think I said at the time that, you know, if Georgia Adams' performances didn't get her into the Wisden 5, a woman is never going to win it for their domestic performances, and that still feels a little bit out of kilter. Okay, so that's Sophie Ecclestone. Now there's of course the other award, which is for the leading woman cricketer in the world. Tell us about that one, Raf, yeah.
Okay, well, that was won this year by Smriti Mandhana. There's a great piece in the Almanac about Smriti's achievements in 2024 by Anisha Ghosh, who actually talks about the fact that she scored, it's something like 25% of India's runs across the year. It was obviously a kind of record-breaking year for Smriti. She broke the record for the most international runs by a woman in a calendar year. Yeah, it's a great piece, and she got some really interesting quotes by Smriti about actually kind of developing her game a bit more and feeling able to sort of free her mind and clear her mind, and that allowing her to actually score. I think she scored 5 centuries in the year, 4 ODI ones and 1 Test 100. So yeah, brilliant achievement from her. Obviously also won the WPL captaining RCB as well, which is an achievement that we have to put it kind of in its proper context, because in my view franchise wins are still worth less than international wins. Others may disagree. It was still a fantastic achievement for her to pull that off as the captain. So yeah.
Yeah, Amelia Kerr, though, a bit unlucky not to have perhaps had a shout.
Yeah, again, if you were looking at that World Cup in particular, because obviously India did not have a good showing in that World Cup, and World Cups are still kind of, you know, the big face of international women's cricket, aren't they? So actually Amelia Kerr's performances there and being really instrumental in New Zealand winning that World Cup, yes, she probably can perhaps feel a little bit unlucky to miss out, but you know, there's going to be many more opportunities for Amelia Kerr to win this award. So congratulations to Smriti Mandhana, I guess, yeah, great to have a couple of sort of high-profile awards going to women in Wisden, and we had a great time at the Wisden dinner, didn't we, Sid? Although there was a mysterious object in the corner of the long room.
Indeed, yes. So in the corner, in the long room at Lord's, there was a mysterious painting shrouded in a huge red sheet, which you can see here. And 2 days later, Raf was back at Lord's to see that sheet unveiled behind it a picture of none other than Charlotte Edwards. Raf, tell us about the picture.
Yeah, so we should say it's a portrait. So it was painted by an artist called Hero Johnson. And it's only the third ever portrait of a woman in the MCC collection, which numbers almost 300 portraits. So kind of really significant in terms of representation. The other two are Claire Taylor, Tales, and Rachel Hayhoe Flint, of course. This is the first one to be actually unveiled in the long room. And actually to kind of be positioned in the long room, because it is, we'll show it in the backdrop of the podcast now, it is Lottie sitting out on the balcony at Lord's watching cricket, which is quite significant, I think, because that's obviously what she's done so much of over her career, and what's kind of made her such a successful coach is her watching. But because of the angle, because it's a sideways angle, they've actually had to move the portrait of Glenn McGrath that was in that bit of the long room so that Lottie is facing the right way over the Lord's pitch. So I think that's actually quite cool that they've kind of gone, right, we're going to put it in pride of place in the best position for this portrait, and we're not going to worry about the sort of established hierarchy of portraits in the long room. So obviously having a female portrait, the first to be actually kind of unveiled in the long room, and also, yeah, it's sort of taking pride of place. I mean, they do move around the portraits, they do kind of try and vary the ones that are in the long room, but because of the importance of Charlotte Edwards, and also the kind of appropriateness of its positioning, my sense is that this one is gonna stay in place for a while.
Yeah, and when the players go out to bat in the Lord's matches, then they will be walking past the stern gaze of Charlotte Edwards twice. Wow, I wouldn't want to be them.
So a little bit about the artist. So she's kind of known for sort of realistic depictions. It's all about kind of capturing the essence of someone. So you can see that it's a portrait, you can see the lovely kind of brush strokes, but it is also, it's very obviously Lottie. And yeah, as I say, kind of about bringing out her personality. The painting was very much done sort of collaboratively with Lottie. She had various sittings at Lord's. She's wearing a very retro object, which is her 2009 shirt, in which she obviously captained England to a World Cup win.
Yeah, they won that. That was at Lord's, right? That was,
yep.
If I remember correctly. So, they won the T20 World Cup at Lord's that year. And she's looking out over that. But it's one of those sort of slightly odd pictures where they take some stuff from like modern times. So her look is the way she looks now, but the shirt is the one that she was obviously wearing, 15 years ago for that World Cup win.
But she did dig out that shirt to sit for the portrait, because that's one of her fondest memories of Lord's, right?
Absolutely, and why not? Fantastic.
The artist was actually invited to attend the event, but ultimately didn't. I think she's got a reputation as being a little bit shy. But yeah, what do you make of the portrait, Sid?
I think it's great, Raf. I'm not much of an art critic, I have to admit, but it's nice. It's nice to see the start of hopefully getting to a position where ultimately, I know that the MCC ultimately have an ambition, don't they, to get some balance in their portraits, and for that sort of thing to be one day 50% women and 50% men. So it'll be interesting to see who they take on next.
Yeah, it will be. The other historic thing about it, I should say, is that it's apparently the first portrait of somebody wearing cricket gear that isn't in whites. So that's interesting. That's kind of Lottie making further history via her own clothing choices, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, for me, it really is I kind of said, that sort of essence of Lottie, that the fierce concentration it's not somebody kind of watching cricket in a relaxed way with a beer. It's somebody who's kind of got that sort of really determination and that sort of steely focus to take everything in. This is her passion, right? She loves women's cricket. It's the focus of her life. She's thinking all the time when she's watching, right, what's going right here? What's going wrong? What am I going to get them to change next time? And she's just really that kind of laser focused. What's going to make these players better? England are obviously going to benefit from that steely focus over the next few years, so it's great to have that portrait up in the long run. Now, Sid, we should talk about the start of Tier 1 this week. We talked in last week's episode about the first round of matches in Tier 2, but we've now had the first round of matches in Tier 1, and my goodness, it was a day of cricket, wasn't it? Let's talk about the couple of matches that were relatively straightforward in the end.
Can we not talk about the Essex match?
You don't think that Grace Scrivens has done a England captaincy case any good, Sid?
I think Essex will know that they need to do better next time.
So Durham beat Essex by 9 wickets. To be fair, a little known player by the name of Susie Bates did hit 93 in that match and kind of really brought it home for Durham. It's exciting to see them doing well. They were very much an unknown quantity because obviously it's a brand new team with who have kind of been assembled together. So that was an interesting one to see. The maybe slightly more unexpected one was Lancashire beating the Blaze by 8 wickets, all thanks to Emma Lamb's 130 not out. We'd predicted that the Blaze were actually going to have a really successful season, so that's a bit of a surprise.
Well, I mean, they still could. It's very much an early season result, isn't it? And there was a great performance from Lamb, as you say, and if you come up against that, then that's going to make it tough to win the game. So, but I'm sure the Blaze will still be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
If we're doing England watch, because obviously Lottie has said that very much performances in county cricket are going to mean being selected for England. I did a little bit of an England watch calculation. Obviously Susie Bates, unfortunately ineligible to open the batting for England, disappointingly. Emma Lamb's going to be opening up for England alongside Rihanna Southby, who hit 72 for Hampshire. In the middle order we're going to have Abby Freeborn and Catherine Bryce. And opening the bowling, we're going to have Phoebe Turner and Lindsay Smith, who took 4 wickets apiece. Anyway, England watch, it's a bit of fun, Sid. We'll be returning to this in future episodes, no doubt. Let's talk about the 2 matches that really went down to the wire, though. One of which was that Hampshire v Warwickshire match.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 matches that went down to the wire are 2 amazing death performances, and let's talk about the first of them, Hampshire. So Hampshire were the bowling side at that point. And they were obviously defending a total, and well, it was a tie in the end.
Yep.
And it was a tie mainly thanks to a fantastic couple of death overs from Freya Davis. So it's that thing of death bowling. England have kind of lacked that since Davis was dropped from the England squad, but she really showed what proper focused death bowling can deliver, because if you can deliver 2 incredibly tight overs as she did, it was a maiden one that went for 2, I think, then you're going to steal so many runs back, and that match therefore ended in a tie. So that was a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, and probably a fair result. So Warwickshire were 8 down with 44 still to get. At that point, you put all your money on Hampshire, but then they ended up with just 10 runs to get, and they had 4 overs to get them. And as you say, it really took that kind of absolutely pinpoint, accurate death bowling from Freya Davies to defend that total in the end.
It's just the whole point is you can't afford a bad ball at that point, and that's where that value of that accuracy comes in. It doesn't, of course, Freya Davies didn't bowl a 90-mile-an-hour fast ball, because that's not what she does. But if you don't bowl any bad balls, that's what's so crucial there.
Absolutely. Obviously there'll be a little bit of disappointment on both sides for not coming out on the right side of it, but as I've just said, probably a tie was a fair result given the way that match ebbed and flowed at the end. Then of course the other match where there was excitement right at the end was Surrey against Somerset. Somerset kind of actually looked like initially like they were going to chase those runs down fairly easily, and Heather Knight was having a very nice innings indeed, but then got out to a bit of a stupid shot, and at that point the Somerset run rate then just took an absolute turn for the worst, and then it looked to all concerned that Surrey were going to do it easily. And then what happened, Sid?
Then Amanda Jane Wellington happened, and this was the death batting from Amanda Jane Wellington, who just, she came in and hit 5 consecutive fours, and he turned what looked like an impossible ask into, a just about doable one. They were left with needing 1 off the final ball. Fran Wilson was able to, confidently hit it for 4, as if that's what she'd been doing all afternoon, which definitely wasn't the case. But it was just a great batting performance, and it was, a batting performance that really played to Wellington's strengths. She told the media afterwards, she said, that she doesn't have a huge amount of shots in her roster. She's not going to be able to hit sixes all around the ground. So what she was doing was manufacturing, cuts over the offside, and it's very difficult to bowl to that. It's very difficult to blame the bowler, and they could potentially have put another man out on the boundary, because they only had 1 on the boundary, but what she was doing was basically moving laterally in her crease side to side to manufacture the width that she needed to go over the offside. So even at one point there was a ball where if she'd stepped this way, then it would have definitely been called a wide down the leg side, but she was able to go so far. She took the risk, opened up her stumps, and time after time was hitting it over the top there and getting those 4s, and that was what they needed, and got them over the line. It's one of those ones that won't happen every time. She won't walk out and do that every time, but when it comes off, boy does it look good, and it obviously feels good.
Bit of a swagger of an Australian there who really has that confidence and that self-belief, because that's what Somerset really needed at that moment. It's much more the English mentality at that point to just give up and go, no, it's got away from us a bit. I'm coming in this position and it's too much for me, it's too difficult. But if you're an Aussie, then maybe nothing's impossible, right? Anyway, all credit to Wello, and what a great ending and what a great first round. And let's hope that the rest of the season is just as good, including this match today, Hampshire v Surrey. We'll be watching, and we will be presumably talking about it on next week's episode. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.